A motion to reconvene into open session.
Motion.
Peter seconds. It's very long. Carry on. Pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Berry?
Here.
Ms. Martin? Here. Ms. Graves?
Here.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Here.
Mr. Peters?
Here.
Ms. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Motion to approve the agenda with the removal of 7G, right?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Hamilton? Mrs. Drew, all in favor? No one opposed, motion carried. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting and the special meeting on April 28th.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Hamilton?
Second.
Second, Mr. Peters, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, no one opposed. I have nothing on, we have nothing online. Is there anyone here to address the agenda, any agenda item? Okay. Ex officios.
Good evening. Student council elections is underway as we prepare for the 2026-2027 school year. Elections are currently being held for both class officers and student council representatives. As we bring a wrap up to another successful school year, I wanted to take a moment on behalf of the student body to share a brief update. We are finishing AP testing and shifting our attention towards final exams. Students continue to work hard as they strive to the end of the year strong and positive. There is also a great deal of excitement surrounding many events taking place in June to celebrate our student accomplishments. For academic recognition ceremonies to senior celebrations, these events provide an opportunity to honor the hard work, dedication, and achievements of our students, teachers, staffs throughout the year.
We would like to take a moment to reflect on our talents in the class of 2026 and face during their senior year of student. First of all, we would like to thank Mr. Storms, Mr. Berry, Mr. Batten, and other administration for working with the senior advisors and class officers to come up with a solution for all of those challenges. Originally, it was decided that our graduation would be held at the Clinton Community Gymnasium. Due to our atypical larger class, the number of guests each student to have at graduation would have been limited if we held a ceremony at this location. Many seniors approached the class officers to share their concerns. Working toward a common goal, the advisors, class officers, and administration came up with a solution to have graduation at the Blackbird State Fieldhouse, a site that could easily accommodate all of our guests. It was great to see a collaboration between the administration and the student body to a solution. Thank you for your continued support of the school community.
Thank you very much. Okay. We have a public hearing and code of conduct.
In my report as well. So really what we're talking about tonight from my angle is it's that time of year of all the appreciations, right? So we throughout the month of April and throughout the month of March really, and excuse me, April and May, we have all kinds of different appreciations. So rather than just appreciating one group of people, I want to just acknowledge all of the various groups of people that the board and I recognize for the great things that they do. So April 4th was National School Librarians Day, so special thanks to them. National Assistant Principals, or in our case Associate Principals, was first week in April. National Library Workers Day, which we don't have that. Administrative Professionals Day, we have that in April as well. School Bus Drivers in April. National Teacher Appreciation Week was the first full week in May. National School Nurses Day is Wednesday, Wednesday in April as well. And then School Lunch Heroes people is in May as well. And then National Speech Pathologist Day is one of the last ones for schools. It's May 18th. So long story short, we do appreciate all of the employees that work for Peru Central School, and thank you for the work that you do. So that's really what we have to talk about today. And I want to thank the students for what they did in regards to advocating for the change, that we needed a different venue for graduation, and after much conversation with Mr. Jones, Billy Jones, we had some conversations about the venue at Clinton Community College. And then we also found out that we're able to do graduation again at Plattsburgh State was a really important piece. The Plattsburgh had not been doing it after COVID. There was a period of time they hadn't, and they did acknowledge that they really didn't reach back out to schools to get that information out to us well. So I had the conversation with Mr. Barry, and I said, well, when we're done with this, let's just be sure that we schedule again for next year so that we're going back to that, because I don't think that it's reasonable for us to be always thinking about the next storm coming in, and so there's good aspects of us being able to use the Apple Bowl during the graduation season for some award ceremonies, and then we're going to move our elementary and middle school moving up days, 5th grade and 8th grade into the auditorium, and then obviously we still have our kindergarten, and that happens during the weekdays anyway, and that'll be also practical. Auditorium. Thank you for that. So that's from us, and then we have a public hearing now on comments. Oh, sorry, different order. I guess I'm not paying attention at all. We've got it. Mr. Batten, you're on hold for a minute. Thank you. I don't know why I thought it was the other way around.
Thank you, everybody. I will try to go quickly through the official 2026-27 proposed budget hearing. Our meeting agenda this evening is, again, a general overview of the school budget and a review of our present financial climate, our budget of our 2026-27 budget development timeline, review of the multi-year financial plan that was originally presented in January of 2026, a review of the New York State Comptroller's fiscal stress monitoring system that was originally presented in February 2026, a review of the real property tax levy limit and the proposed 2026-27 budget parameters, enhancements and reductions, and proposed revenue and expenditures as presented in March of 2026. And we also have some additional information on property reassessments, equalization rates, tax rates, and our budget vote allocation. This presentation is basically a culmination of all of the months of hard work that have gone into the budget development process. So specific presentations can be found in Board docs linked to those individual meetings. Again, the definition of a school budget is a complete financial plan for a 12-month period of time based on estimated expenditures and probable revenues. New York State school boards must prepare an annual budget, which then becomes the basis for the school tax levy. Expenditures are expenses, the costs of running a school district, such as personnel costs, transportation, utilities, maintenance of facilities, materials and supplies, etc. Personnel costs, which are salaries and benefits, make up approximately 73% of the 26-27 budget expenditures. The main revenue sources to support the school district are property taxes and state aid. Property taxes make up approximately 38% of our budgeted revenues for 26-27, and state aid makes up about 55% of budgeted revenues. A review of our present financial climate. Inflationary pressures continue to stress our resources. We are faced with declining enrollment both within the district as is the trend across New York State. However, we do have all of our labor contracts settled through this next budget cycle. Our budgetary challenges. The big one that we've discussed at length is an anticipated 1% due minimum increase of foundation aid from the New York State Governor's executive proposal. There is still no New York State budget, so we don't have a timeline on that as far as I know. We also are faced with fluctuations in special education costs and increased needs of our students, as well as utility costs, which many homeowners are faced with at this time. Our budget development timetable. As I said, we started in January. That seems to be kicking off, so I'll ensure that's corrected for the online presentation. Our multi-year financial plan, I will move quickly as this has been presented already. We are projecting a deficit for the 25-26 school year and forecasted a deficit for the 26-27 school year based on assumptions prior to the beginning of the budget development process. This trend is expected to increase as our expenditures are outpacing anticipated revenues. Here's another graphical representation of the multi-year finance plan, which was presented in January. I will now move into the New York State Comptroller's Fiscal Stress Monitoring System, which is published by the Comptroller each year. It serves as an early warning measure to local officials and to help guide decision-making, provides feedback to various leaders and officials and taxpayers about the state of various agencies and school districts, and it includes both financial and environmental indicators. Peru did not receive a designation of fiscal stress for the 24-25 school year, which is the 2025 cycle. As you can see, based on our fiscal stress, we have no designation. Here are some graphical representations of some of those indicators. Our unassigned fund balance, our total fund balance, which are compared to other schools across the state, as well as an operating and surplus and deficit comparison. There are factors that are pulled out that the comptroller uses in this formula. So if anyone has questions, I can explain that a little more. And as you can see, our overall fiscal stress score is 0 compared to other schools. These are very for all schools, 6.4 for North Country schools, 6.2 for medium upstate schools. There's also environmental indicators that go into the fiscal stress monitoring system. Again, Peru does not have any designation for the 2025 fiscal stress monitoring cycle. Some of these indicators that go into the fiscal stress monitoring system include our economically disadvantaged percentage, our student-to-teacher ratio, our teacher turnover rate, and the change in our property values. Also budget vote approval, and again, our environmental stress score, we do have a few points based on some of these measures, but again, no designation, and you can see it's comparable to actually less than the average that is published. The real property tax levy limit, which was presented in March. The real property tax levy is the total dollar value of property taxes collected to support the school district. Under New York state law, we are required to calculate the maximum allowable tax levy, which is the tax levy limit, also called the tax cap. Again, this calculation, as we've discussed in the past, accommodates to real growth in the local tax base, but also the rate of inflation. And the rate of inflation is restricted to 2%, even if actual inflation is beyond 2%. Here is the graphical representation of the tax levy limit formula. For the 26-27 school year, Peru Central School District's tax cap or tax levy limit is 3.18%. And this is using the tax base growth factor, which is given to us by New York State of 6.6%, and the allowable levy growth factor, aka the inflation factor that's used in the formula, is 2%. Here's another representation of our actual calculation. And I did want to revisit the CPS BOCES CTE Center just as a reminder in the budgetary process that this new CTE Center lease is factored into the 26-27 tax cap. This capital exclusion, which is basically added to the tax cap, represents about 0.65%. So the important thing to know is that if the district does not levy this amount, you're basically foregoing the tax revenue associated with this project for the life of the lease. so it is important to levy that additional 0.65%, which is included in that 3.18%. And the CBS BOCE CTE Center will expand career and technical education opportunities for students across the country. Our tax levy history from 2018-19 to present. Last year's tax levy was at 2.18. Again, this year's tax levy limit was 3.18%. A quick review of the 2026-27 budget parameters, enhancements, and reductions. The 2026-27 proposed budget theme is collective commitment. The approved proposed budget parameters for 26-27, again, we are operating under the assumption that we will receive a 1% increase in New York State Foundation aid based on the executive budget proposal. We are using the parameters of the going out at the tax cap of 3.18%. We are including a $100,000 capital outlay project to replace the main distribution panel in the elementary school. And the board authorized the commitment of fund balance to maintain essential programming. Another reminder of our proposed capital outlay project. This is $100,000 that can be built into the regular budget to address facility upgrades and receive New York State building aid back the following year based on these expenses, instead of that being amortized over many years like a big capital project would be. So if $100,000 is spent in this school year, we receive about $88,000 back because our building aid ratio is 88%. So the proposed capital outlay project is replacing the distribution panel in the elementary school, which is believed to be original to the building and is currently operating on borrowed time. If this, there have already been individual components that have failed. If the entire panel was to fail, it would result in a significant power loss. And so instead of waiting for this to become an emergency, disrupting our students' education, and being much more expensive, it is advisable to replace it now while we can do it and not have it be an emergency, and while it still fits within that $100,000 budget, because that hasn't changed in many years, and it hasn't been increased in any of the executive budgets or the proposals in many years. Now I will go into the initial base budget for 26-27. Based on estimated expenditures and revenues, we were faced with about a $1.6 million gap between base expenditures and base revenues. As a result of that gap, proposals and reductions were evaluated and discussed by the leadership team. And here is a list of the proposals and enhancements that have been approved by the board. If there are any questions on specific ones, we can go into those specifically, but these have been approved by the board in our previous budget workshops and budget meetings. Another set of budget reductions for a total of about $1.3 million worth of budget reductions for the 26-27 school year. And I guess my enhancements got deleted, so I will add those. There's about $182,500 worth of budgetary enhancements that are facility-related upgrades. And so once we calculate the enhancements and the reductions, we were left with about a $400,000 budget gap. And to balance our revenues and expenditures, the board authorized appropriating additional fund balance to bridge that gap, resulting in a total 2026-27 proposed budget of $56,518,175. This represents a 1.55% budget increase from the 25-26 adopted budget. This is a review of our total fund balance as of June 30th, 2025, and we were at about $9.2 million. Our projected total fund balance going into the 26-27 school year is about $7.9 million. A brief review of our 2026-27 dark blue is 2026-27, and the light blue is 2025-26. Again, the big buckets for our budget are obviously costs associated with teaching. Special programs include special education, and our employee benefits are the largest categories in our budget. Our proposed revenue review, again, we have our tax levy of a 3.18% increase, our foundation aid with a 1% increase, and then additional category being fund balance and reserves and other items, bank interest, miscellaneous revenue, etc. Ultimately, that brings us to the proposed 26-27 school year budget. Again, $56,518,175, 1.55% budget increase for the 25-26, and a 3.18% tax levy for the 25-26. I did briefly want to touch on property reassessment, equalization rates, and tax rates, as the budget notice will be mailed tomorrow after the conclusion of this budget hearing. There are towns in the Peru districts that are not at 100% equalization for the 26-27 school year. So an equalization rate of 100% means the municipality or the town is assessing property at 100% of market value. An equalization rate of less than 100% means that the municipality's market value is greater than its assessed value. The assessors determine those, and New York State determines those. That's not a value that is determined by the school district. Again, this is information from New York State Office of Real Property Tax Service. Equalization is necessary in New York because there are no fixed percentages at which property must be assessed. Different municipalities assess property differently, and taxing jurisdictions such as the school district, we have multiple towns within our school district, so they're not all the same. What does it mean when your municipality's equalization rate decreases? That means that the market value is rising faster than your assessed value. Again, the tax levy versus the tax rate. The tax levy is the total sum of money. So when we talk about the 3.18% increase, that's the total sum of money that's increasing 3.18%. The tax rate is based on the individual town, and that's what is used to calculate school taxes. So an individual school taxes may not go up 3.18%. They may go up more than 3.18% depending on your assessed value, which town you fall in. The estimated tax rate range for 26-27 is 14.56 per 1,000 to 22.74. Here are the estimated tax rates based on the most recent information provided by the Clayton County Real Property Office. You can see we are projecting a decreased tax rate for the towns of Osable, Blackbrook, Peru, and Plattsburgh, and Saranac, with an increase in the town of Schuyler Falls. You can see that Osable, Blackbrook, Peru are all at 100%. The town of Plattsburgh is anticipated to jump up to 100% equalization, and the town of Saranac is decreasing slightly, and the town of Schuyler Falls is also decreasing their equalization. On to our budget vote information. Tuesday, May 19th in the high school community room from 1 to 8 p.m. Absentee ballots must be received by 5 p.m. on May 19th by the district office. Because the board elected to go up to tax levy limit, only a simple majority of 50% plus one is required for the budget vote. What is on the ballot? Budget proposition number 1, bus proposition number 2, and the Board of Education election. The total proposed 26-27 school year budget is $56,518,175. Budget increase of 1.55%. Levy increase of 3.18% for the 25-26 school year. Bus proposition number 2 is to purchase and finance at the option of the board 3 standard 65-passenger school buses. It is important to note that New York State transportation aid is And these bus purchases are in accordance with the district's school bus replacement plan to keep our students safe longer on the road. In the Board of Education election, there are 2 vacant seats to be filled, one for a 3-year term and one for a 2-year term. The individual who receives the most votes will be elected to a 3-year term. The individual who receives the second most votes will be elected to a 2-year term. And the candidates on the ballot will be listed as follows: Laura Hathaway, Stephen Peters, and Mark Hamilton. That marks the conclusion of our budget hearing. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
It's on Chrome.
Right. Welcome to Code of Conduct Public Hearing for the 26-27 school year. So the topics to discuss tonight, recommended changes to the Code of Conduct include e-bikes, e-scooters, and other e-propelled devices. So these are items that have recently been seen on campus, whizzing around, specifically on our playgrounds, athletic fields, sidewalks, and things like that, which is brought into the attention of the committee to say, this is probably something that we should look at of some regulation from a safety perspective and also from the perspective of damaging our facilities. So I'll give you an example. Just the other day, I saw a student who was going home from practice on a scooter like the one on the right, and they were going up towards the elementary school, spraying like a rooster's tail of dirt out behind them, eating up the grass as they went, right? They're spinning into it. We have had to address a few times kids whizzing across the football field, the JV football field up here on the one on the left, and again, it just leaves this track of dirt behind it as it rips up the dirt and grass as it goes. So from a facilities perspective, that's a concern. And then the other piece is, from a safety perspective, I personally ask the kids to walk their bicycles at dismissal, on the sidewalk when it's crowded. Please don't ride your bicycle. Because if you get ridden into on a bicycle, that can hurt. And so to get ridden into on one of these, or, if you have, I'm sure most people have seen, there are other larger, heavier bikes that also go, 30 or 40 miles an hour. And if you get hit with one of those or get ridden into or into property, the property is going to get damaged. And to put it in perspective, we don't allow skateboarding on school grounds because we decided at one point that's just not what they're going to do. So, kind of where this all comes from. So, multiple incidents of students having e-bikes and e-scooters on campus, the football field, concerns about pedestrians, and we have no language in our code of conduct currently to address anything electric. We have things about motorized vehicles, but we don't have anything about vehicles. So the proposed language is electric scooters and bikes can offer both a form of exercise as well as entertainment. They also can be dangerous for the rider and pedestrians as well as potentially damaging to property. Students are not permitted to ride e-bikes or e-scooters on school grounds unless the rider is licensed to operate the vehicle and the vehicle is registered and insured. If an e-bike is being operated on school grounds by a licensed operator, it must be operated on a roadway at all times. No time should an e-bike or e-scooter be operated on the sidewalk, playground, or turf area. So, you know, the question is, and I'll be honest with you, I talked to our school resource officer, I did quite a bit of research, as much as I could, you know, in terms of what a municipality is doing. E-bikes are kind of an open thing right now. There are multiple classes of e-bikes. Different municipalities are trying to regulate them in different ways. There are no places that I'm aware of that you know, require you to register your e-bike unless it is gasoline motor, which makes it not an e-bike, right? And it's kind of interesting because we're just in this place where they've kind of popped up, but the same damage can occur. You know, I think the e-bike, the one on the left, the dirt bike, is equivalent to like a 110 cc gas-powered dirt bike, right? So if you ride that into somebody or something, there's going to be damage. They're going to get hurt, and it's kind of interesting that, you know, if you had a gas when you were riding it, you need a license plate, you would need insurance, so that if you damage somebody else's property for them, your insurance would cover it. And the laws just haven't caught up with it yet. So kind of where the suggestion comes from, it's just not for school. Would anybody like to discuss that, you know, before we move on to cell phones?
I have a couple of questions, or at least one. How would we plan to monitor that in the sense of making sure that they're registered and insured? Would they have to submit that information to the district so that we have that on file at all times? How would we go about, I guess, what was the process, or have we discussed or thought about a process for collecting that information and having it on file? And then also maybe like, how does that work outside of school hours? I mean, even in the time that I grew up here, I saw 3 of these at the elementary, or the intermediate, I didn't think we were a playground on my way here. So, you know, I think that it's great as a community, we're able to use those resources in a lot of our property out of school hours, but how will we go about ensuring that that's not being done after school hours?
So, I'm going to address your first thing first, okay? And that's the part about how do we know if they're registered, insured, etc. So when students have permission to drive to school, they get a parking permit, and that comes to my office, and we check to make sure they have a driver's license, we check to make sure that they're permission is their registration. And if it's, we do the assumption that if it's registered, it's insured. So that is how I would anticipate we would be addressing that, because if you don't, and that's what gives you permission to drive to school. And I mean, I'll say, you know, we don't allow fighting on campus outside of school hours. We don't allow vaping on campus outside of school hours. We don't allow anything that's in the code of conduct outside of school hours. If we see it, we address it, you know. And I think that that's something that partly as a school community, we need to, if this is the direction we go in, make sure the community is aware. Please don't ride your e-scooter here on campus, you know, not after hours, not to school. Just, it's not for you. And probably, you know, without some Paris squares and Facebook, like, just make sure people know, like, our goal is not for people to get seen and get in trouble. The goal is to keep the grounds that the place is not there.
I have a question as well. The language that suggests that they need to be licensed and registered and insured. You can't get licensed, there's no registration, you get insurance for it. Why create a barrier that they can't overcome? Why not just say we're not allowing e-bikes on school grounds?
I guess, you know, there's 2 schools of thought when I think about it. I think at some point we cross into electric motorcycles, you know, which there are electric motorcycles that can be registered and insured. I would be totally fine with just saying they can't come here no matter what.
I mean, the language is fairly specific to e-bikes and scooters, not motorcycles. So, it just, I don't like to create a rule that with an ability for somebody to overcome it, and then just make it so that it's impossible. Just, if we don't want them, if they're a problem, then just say that. If they can't get licensed, there's no way to register them. They can't be.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, based on my conversations with our school resource officers, the research we did, I think that will come in the next couple of years, that we will be able to register certain classes of these. There are 3 classes of them. I'm not gonna pretend that I have the details of how you get from one class to the next, but the highest class are the bigger, heavier ones. Municipalities, it sounds like, the state is looking at how to register them as a vehicle so that we can't use them in the roadway. And to me, I'm okay too with saying not at all, and then if that happens, change the code of conduct again. You know, I guess I'm not opposed to kids riding them to school and parking in the parking lot. But I think not on the sidewalk, not on the turf, not on the playground.
Is that?
You could just make that, put that in.
It could be their means of transportation to come to school.
Sure. But if that's the case, then the rule that's missing is that they need to be on the roadway, not on the sidewalk, right? Then the rest of it is not as necessary, if that's what we want to have.
And like an indication or maybe based on where specifically we do want them to park, or to, need to be stored during that time.
I live near the school, and one thing that bothers me, I'm not technology smart on these devices, but we have 3 or 4 students that have, I call them e-skateboards. And they are on our property, they use the junior high parking lot to do all kinds of crazy stuff, and think they're gonna kill themselves. This is eliminating all. Is there also a way of saying bike, scooter, skateboards, and the like, or some way to be all-inclusive about these electronic devices that are being used? Because I don't know how popular the skateboard is in comparison to these, but they are in existence and they are using them, and I see them on a pretty daily basis.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's news to me.
It's just
So it might have to be a blanket,
a blanket
electric
event.
vehicle, electric, not inclusive of
Device
cars,
that's used for transportation or something.
individual.
I have maybe a slightly different view. And first of all, let's acknowledge the obvious that it's absolutely the Wild West when it comes to these devices. They really are. And but one of the things that it does for people, and I want to make sure this is at least acknowledged, is it provides a remarkably affordable means of transportation for people to get to and from. Spending any amount of time in a little bit more slightly urban area like Plattsburgh, folks are everywhere, going everywhere to the grocery stores and whatever. And I will say, what I like about them is that a person who doesn't have the means to purchase a vehicle and pay for all the other stuff that goes along with it can in fact get around town pretty efficiently on one of these things. And I do think smart communities are ones that are going to be leaning into it as opposed to pulling away from it. That said, I'm not sure we're the legislative body to regulate everything. You know what I mean? It's got to come from a different place, and we have to kind of work with it. In the meantime, I would be more apt to advocate because we don't know. I guess going back to Mark's point about licensing and registering and insuring, it's like $15 to $25 a month to insure it. order to get a license, you have to have a car, and all the costs that come along with that, and pay the $90 for the license, and pay the $125 for the driver's ed school, et cetera. So it starts to take away from that equitability factor that this mode of transportation provides. You know, whether a student uses it to just come to school and mess around and screw up Sarah's parking lot, I don't know, but I would rather lean into it and not, I'm gonna say outright welcome, but I think it was just mentioned, provide a spot. Walk it while you're on campus. No riding it is easier to say than are you licensed? And then a paddock or a library somewhere where it's like this is where you're walking to. This is where they're stored, and at the end of the day, you walk it off campus and depart safely somewhere where you're going over that.
And then if it becomes a problem on the road, some other entity will take over that problem, which would be more responsible and have even more clout.
Law enforcement.
But it should, I prefer for not having them be driven on our campus at all, at any time. However, not completely eliminate them, like Steve said. You do see a lot of people riding them now.
Do you see them as a tool where we would have a student who was riding it to school, register it with our school, like we do with our student drivers?
The
Because it's
concern
really
of
nice, it's really nice to see, I never looked at it specifically, but the bike racks by the middle school, there's 30 to 40 bikes there. That's a change from before, and to me, that's a really nice, good thing, is a healthy thing.
I think that actually dovetails into another point,
It-
because there are a lot of bikes now that you don't know that they're electric.
You don't even know they're
Because it's
electric.
built right into the
And
frame.
they've got the thicker tires and a bigger frame, so you can't tell if they're electric or not. So if they're registered and allowed, however,
We
have
do.
rules.
We do need something, there's no questions about it.
the concern, I just think of myself telling a student, please ride that in the road with the cars. Yeah, I don't know if I want to tell kids to ride the bicycle.
Well, we do anyway, bikes, right?
Bicycles of the road.
All those are the roads.
Bicycles, Michael.
Whether you're
bicycles are
pedaling,
rules of the road.
whether it's under your own power or it's under electric power,
You
it's
still ride the
becoming a little ubiquitous and the danger, like, there's certainly a danger point here for sure. But again, I don't have to get anything else to do, but like, the rules of the road aren't communicated to most anybody anyway, and that might be an opportunity somewhere down the line for us.
Grayson or Maggie, you have any insight on this topic? Thoughts?
Personally, never been hit by a but I mean, I'm still young, so I think it's time.
That time.
Yeah.
Can't do that too right there.
I would say though, I will be leaving track practice because there's some guy on that. It is like, I have been on one before, and it goes up to like 70 miles per hour on a scooter, and I do get a little scared.
I've definitely seen like a lot more of them recently. Like when we were out at the track meet a little bit ago, there was like probably 3 or 4 of them that would just go by. And I definitely think there has to be like something put in place, but I think we should still be able to like use them, but safe.
I think it's a lot of the kids' transportation because parents are working in it, we're kind of trying to get sport events, and it's kids that don't live in the town, write it in to be able to use this, their practice and stuff.
So, really, they could be regulated just like any other vehicle.
Right, just like a car.
Just like a car, that they can only do, only be on that road, the driveways to go in and so on, and a certain spot to park them might be nice. But,
Maybe like say something about no, like not on any grass.
Right.
Really nice.
yes, yes.
All fields, no grass.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with conditions.
Yeah.
Where I would not to. My concern is just licensed to operate.
Oh, they're not licensed yet.
Registration, and sure, they cannot do that. So it just creates saying, well, if you do this, you can use it, but there's no way.
Do we have in our code of conduct, is there anything that includes bikes and skateboards you mentioned?
I don't believe there is in the code of conduct for business.
Okay.
Do bicycles have to be registered?
No.
So like if a student says, my $200, $500 bike has been stolen from the rack, there's no way of proving that it was there, or that that student has that bike and is registered.
We have, I mean, cameras
Yeah,
that
and
you
that
can
was-
pretty well see, you know, and I think when we look at this situation, I think that, you know, a big part of this, I think that this is something that, I spoke to Ms. Bowles about, she was gonna reach out to Ms. I'm kind of surprised they haven't caught up with this yet, because I think that if somebody does not have their own insurance, and they do drive into somebody and break their leg, then it's on our insurance.
They are investigating and getting back to me, but there is concern that personal liability insurance doesn't as well.
Well, maybe that one sentence too, because right now they don't have to be licensed or registered. Maybe that, at the point that,
Unless the rider starts from there and take it out.
right, but you could put in there for future, at the point that New York State requires a registration and license to operate the vehicle, you know, yeah, it must be registered with us.
We could have that, or you
Yeah.
could always come back to,
Yeah.
we could always come back the following year.
Right.
It became a rule. or
Yeah, because they haven't done anything yet. It's been a while.
So, do we want to leave it at that they're not allowed to be ridden on school grounds for right now until we get further information from NYSER and the state catches up with registration, licensing, insurance?
We can look into that particular aspect of it with NYSER and then bring this particular piece back in our
Back.
June meeting.
Right.
We can bring it back to leadership too and have a conversation about it, and we'll bring it back to the board in June for a final decision on language.
But I think right now, make sure that e-bikes, e-scooters, skateboards are operating, you know, they cannot be on playground or turf area. Make that a rule. And then when we find out more from NYSER and wherever else with our insurance company, then we can add all the rest.
Similarly, as I saw as a parent from Parents Square, you know, like bus behavior, reminders coming back out and stuff, that we still do have the time frame to kind of be able to put this information or whatever our expectation is for the end of this year
Yeah,
out
yep.
on our social platforms to say,
Right.
listen, you know, we see this, here's our expectation.
Yep.
As we kind of figure out whatever the exact thing is.
Right.
All right, thank you.
So we're gonna come back in June with different language.
For this
Right,
one, yes.
but at this point, I think that you could put out on Parent Square, no time should e-bike, e-scooter, skateboard, or whatever be operated on the sidewalk, playground, or turf area.
Okay. Moving on.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, electronic device policy. So background. Spring of 2025, Peru piloted a no electronic device for students policy. And then in the fall, the state began a ballot ban on electronic devices for all students. In September to November, I would say most students follow the cell phone ban with a few violations. However, in the time between December and April, we definitely are seeing an increase of students having their phones with them, violating the code of conduct in state law, and it's oftentimes the same kiddos, different kiddos who have decided that their phones are essential part of their operating day. So the current code of conduct is essentially that if you are seen with your phone is confiscated, it's brought to the office, and you back one day. And then after that, it's an increasing number of days that you have to try to be in. And what's happening is that students are just saying, well, never is something. So they get sort of circumvent the process as a result of doing that. Now, if you remember back a few years ago, we changed the code of conduct with e-cigarettes and vaping. And so what the proposal is for phones is that we sort of, electronic devices, is we sort of mimic that. And what it really worked pretty well. We said, okay, if you get caught with an e-cig, you can have one set of consequences. If you want to say, listen, I should have had it, it's okay, and if you want to search me in the future, that's fine. A different set of consequences. If you say, too bad, catch me if you can. My time. And it's really worked pretty well with these things. So the proposed change for the code of conduct with electronic devices is 612, no change for pre-K 5, is we stick with the first time the device is confiscated and turned into the office, the student receives a warning, picks it up at the end of the day. And for the second offense, the device is confiscated and turned into the office, and that's where they can choose, like, I'll take 1 day of school suspension, or I'll have 3 days of lunch ISS and do voluntary social distancing. Got it? My bad. Shouldn't carry it with me. Check me in the future. And then 3 or more offenses, devices confiscated and turned into the office, and then 2 days of ISS.
Any questions for Mr. Madden on that?
You said this mimics the E6.
Right. Yeah.
Does this impact our suspension rates? Like, does this contribute to it? You know, like when we get identified by the state, especially like for students with disabilities? I'm just wondering, like, if the total number impacts that at all?
I mean, a suspension is a suspension. So, but I will also say that, you know, previously, I know Mr. Frank, we were identified as having too many suspensions. And that was because a day of lunch ISS was counting as a suspension. And we have recoded that, so we are off of that list. Never recoded.
Won't you, brother?
Predict.
Do you have a lot of students that get ISS with vaping?
Not a lot, and quite frankly, most students, I will say, most students, especially in consultation with a parent, choose to have random searches instead of, a longer period of ISS. That's most.
Any other board members with a question on that topic? So we're okay with that one?
Right.
So we'll bring that the one on e-bikes, we'll have a conversation as a leadership team in regards to that, and then come up with some language, and then Mr. Batten can either share that back with his committee, and then we'll bring it back in June to kind of firm up the language on that. Sounds like we're okay with this last piece with our cell phones.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, PAT.
I didn't expect to get back.
Should have written the e-bike.
So, good evening. As Mark said, we didn't wait tonight, it was 17 or 18 conference in
Wow.
Peru. So, May is always a time of reflection, celebration, and preparation. It's when we recognize the tremendous work happening in our classrooms, while also looking ahead to the challenges and opportunities that await us next year. On behalf of PAT, I want to acknowledge the dedication of our PAT faculty. Every day, our educators go far beyond the responsibilities listed in our contract. Their commitment continues to make a meaningful difference in the lives of our children and throughout this community. We have helped students achieve academically, artistically, and athletically. We have also witnessed educators continually adapting to changing needs while maintaining high expectations for all learners. These accomplishments are possible because of the collaboration among teachers, administrators, parents, and the Board of Education. We continue to value the importance of maintaining our open communication and a collaborative relationship between the superintendent, the administrators, and our union. Respectful dialogue and partnership are critical to achieving our core mission. So that's what I have for tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, reports and communications, any discussion on any of those? Okay, I have a motion to accept and approve the reports and communications. Motion is approved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Peters, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. New business. Proposed, any questions, comments on those? Okay, then motion to approve new business consent items, 6A through G. Mrs. Graves,
Second.
second Mr. Hamilton, all in favor? Motion carried, no one opposed. Oh, I did want to mention too, was it the donations? That was very nice with the donations too. It's, again, kept the backpack program and then some money too for the elementary PE program. So I keep seeing those donations coming from the backpack program. Okay, personnel. Any questions, discussion on that? We removed the trash one. Is there still more discussion on that? Motion to accept and approve personnel number 7, A through G. Question?
Yeah. 7.
That was prior to our discussion.
This is just notifying.
Notifying us.
You're receiving a notification.
That it happened. Okay? Question. Motion to accept and approve personnel number 7, A through G. Motion, Mr. Hamilton. Second, Mrs. Gray, all in favor? No one opposed, motion carried. New business. The Area 6, October 8th. They want the designation already. Anybody who wants to go to the October 8th Malone Country Club with dinner at this point.
We're not sure.
I'm not sure. We'll just kind of leave that, okay? Summer law conference. I know virtually is great. I would like to, again, join that. Anybody else? I've done it here, and then if somebody can come in for any amount of time, they can come in. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you just come in, we sign up. Yeah, we just sign up one person, and then we come in, because there is a cost to it for everyone. And then whenever anybody can come in, they can come in. Okay, so please sign us up for that. Virtual July 29, 30. Okay, oh, that's right, sorry. Motion, Mr. Peters. Second, Boswell Davies, all in favor? No one opposed, motion carried. And then the sunsetting resolutions, we really don't have to do that until July, right? So if people haven't had a chance to take a look at those, I say that and the resolution kit, perhaps bring up in June again, okay? Is anybody? Yeah, table it until June. Please take a look at the sunsetting ones. I think most of them are pretty common sense wise. And then in the kit, there is also a couple of different resolutions. We may want to put in a resolution. We've done that in the past. Okay. NISBA annual business meeting. Oh, there's one person not here today. That's the person that goes to.
We can bring it back.
We'll bring it back in June.
As well.
See if Mr. Webanero would like to continue to do that. Public comment. Oh, okay.
I became, I'll try to be quick, I became aware of this conflict with the senior banquet, where the student council did their due diligence in the fall to check dates, both at the school and at the section, about what would and would not conflict. They picked Friday the 5th. Is that right? Is that what you guys picked? Okay, where there were no conflicts. The section then changed specifically as the state qualifier track meet from that Saturday to that Friday afternoon without, they had originally scheduled it for that Saturday, then just changed it after the fact. The athletic director brought it up, everybody approved it except for one school, and then the coordinator of the section didn't make any movement to change the name. And so my concern is we've got, I don't know, 17 or 20 seniors, especially these two, who have put in their effort and time to coordinate this banquet, which arguably is the prom, more or less, for the seniors, that they now can't go to because adults didn't, either weren't on their game or weren't considering this. And so I don't know if there's anything we can do to try to correct the wrong. But I do know for sure that this coordinator of the section has changed events for other schools, similar functions. They're refusing to do that this time. And I don't know why.
I was not aware of it, and I will.
Grayson, did you have something?
Yeah,
Get more information?
I reached out when I found out because I was looking, and originally when we planned this, there was nothing on the website, like Mr. Peterson, and then it's been, because we both have done track for the past couple of years, and it's always been on a Friday, so we were kind of surprised to see that it was on a Saturday, but that's why we made it for Friday, because there was no other sporting events. And I know Miss Marshall had reached out, and everything was okay until it got declined. And I personally reached out, and we provided different solutions, like maybe moving it a little bit earlier, because I know Maggie does pentathlon, and that starts earlier, but then it's a couple hours after here until they start the rest. So even pushing it up, and then there's a rain day event, which is Saturday the 6th. But last year we ended up doing it in the pouring rain,
Oh,
and it
yes.
was storming, and we were in the gym. So I don't understand why they move it. So I provided solutions, and then I got an answer. I replied back, and it's been a week now since I got a reply.
And I'm also the representative for SAC, the Student Athletic Advisory Committee. I'm the representative for Peru, and it's all Section 7 kids. What is Mr. Walton's on? I think that's how he says his last name. I'm not too sure. So I have reached out to him because I've been on the committee for the past 3 years now, and I have not gotten a reply. But I do plan to bring it up. We only have 4 meetings a year. Our next meeting is a retreat down in Spring Lake, so I do, if I am going, I didn't go last year at a conflict, but if I do go, I plan to go up to him.
That track meets here, isn't it? The section of the,
No. So the challenge.
Where is it?
That's the Saranac Lake, that's the issue.
Oh,
Right?
normally we have-
There'd be a
Yes,
little bit
we have
easier.
Normally it's
sectionals
here.
but
Yeah.
state qualifiers
This is
in
state
Saranac
qualifier.
Lake.
Okay.
And I know the rest of the running events I believe are 4:30, but you go for pentathlon at 1. So, after you do your first pentathlon event, which is on the track, Maggie was saying there's time, there's nothing on the track, so even, moving it earlier would benefit, because there's 17 seniors that are going to be jeopardized.
And then also, that same day, as the meet is at 4:30, but I'm at 1, and we leave as a group. So I'll probably leave around 11. That's the same day as the academic pep rally, where it's the seniors pie the teachers and we do all this fun things with dodgeball, but it's marshmallow fluff now. Can't do dodgeball anymore. So I had people come up to me upset, and will say it is upsetting that we won't be able to partake in that as the same day. And we also, I just came aware there's a jazz musician. Is that earlier that day? Someone told me about that, but I don't know if I'll be able to partake in that as well.
it was, Wallentuck that changed it from.
Yeah, I mean,
From the
it's.
6th to the 5th.
They did what they're supposed to do.
Mhm.
And then, things get changed, that's okay, but they're not recognize it. And for some reason, it's been okay for other schools to make these requests and have things move. we make this request, it's not open. And I don't understand why that's the case, and so I don't know.
I definitely need to learn a little bit more about the requests that have been made and, on Amy's part, so I'll speak with her tomorrow. And maybe we'll call you, get your insight on what you've done. And I have a CSO meeting on Friday, so I can bring it up at that. I'm not sure I can change a lot, but I will definitely advocate for such change.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Anybody sign up? No? Okay, we have to go into executive session to finish the discussion from earlier, so motion to convene into executive session to discuss personnel issues. Motion to Peter, second. Second, Mrs. Prue, and people, we won't have any conclusion that people need to be